Hello and welcome to You Talking to Me, the Euranet Plus weekly debate. Today we want to discuss about the never-ending debate of revolving doors, which is again in the news after the case of former Commissioner Neelie Kroes. Some days ago we learned that when she took office in 2004 as Commissioner, she forgot or she didn't mention her directorship of an offshore company in the Bahamas. So to discuss about this topic, we are joined today by two leading members of the European Parliament. So I would like to introduce Frank Engel, member of the European Parliament for the European People's Party. And we have also Philippe Lamberts, he's member for the European Green Party. Welcome both. Thanks for being here. So as I was saying, the case of Neelie Kroes came up only some weeks after we learned about another controversy when Barroso, in July, former president of the Commission, accepted a high-profile job in the bank Goldman Sachs. So I want to start with a very clear and short question for both. And if you can answer in 1 minute, that would be great. Is the code of conduct for EU commissioners strong enough? We can start with Philippe Lamberts.
Well, obviously it's not strong enough, but we should not be under the illusion that a code will be sufficient to remedy personal deficiencies. Because what this is telling us is that in these two cases you have leading politicians who have completely lost touch with the one thing called common sense. They cannot ignore that many of our citizens are growing increasingly distrustful of the European Union, yet they still behave in this cozy world where money and political power basically are too close to one another. They cannot ignore the impact that has on trust, and trust is the currency of democracy.
You want to react, please?
I can pick up easily where Philip left off, because first of all I agree. Second of all, I would say this is about decency more than it is about rules. We can write a new code of conduct every other week. That's not going to prevent somebody from Barroso, who, in my view, had enough in life of almost everything, from still searching for more. And if on top of it all, he then does it with the institution that has this particular renown that Goldman Sachs has, this is simply a sign of fundamental lack of decency and of not much else. Neelie Kroes is, of course, a bit different. She lied to Parliament during the hearing, unless she had really forgotten that she had this.
You can give us the privilege of age, you know.
Yeah. That's probably the one thing that would
memory is something that fades away with age. So, well, she could plead that.
Let's leave it there.
Well, the one asking for stricter rules has been the EU Ombudswoman, OReilly. She has argued that the rules are not specific enough, and then the problem is is the Commission the one in charge of the interpretation of the rules. Anyway, for her, it's urgent to do something in order to, as you were saying, get back the trust of EU citizens. I guess in order to get back this trust, the Commission has announced today a new measure, a transparency register for all EU institutions, including yours, the European Parliament. Mr. Engel, what do you think about this measure?
I tell you frankly, I don't need the Commission to propose a new transparency measure to me, because I am transparent.
But maybe not all members of the European Parliament.
Look, it's always the same story. If they already don't comply with what is on the table now, and with the rules that we have to fulfill now, how likely is it that they will comply with something else? The problem is not the absence of rules or the modification of rules. The problem is the respect of the existing rules. And if we can't bring, notably the Commission and its eminent members, and former members obviously, to do just that, then they have a problem with the people that they choose, and they have obviously a problem with decency in the conduct of a public office. That is not my problem, and I'm absolutely unwilling to accept new and other rules for everyone, while we're essentially just talking about a few of them who are off the rail.
But these people chosen they also participate in the hearings of the European Parliament, so maybe more control at the beginning.
Yeah, that is true. Yet if you really want to re-establish trust, the first thing that this Commission should do should go after Barroso and go after Kroes. On Barroso, he could be stripped of his personal advantages as former head of the Commission. And that could have been done as soon as it was announced. What I cannot fail to notice is that Juncker, it took him 2 months, well, maybe it was the holidays, to start reacting on something that hurt public confidence quite a lot. On Kroes, if she lied, well, she should be sued. she should be sued. Yet, I do not see this sense of urgency. So it really appears as if, the Commission tries to appear as if it was doing something while not doing it. And on this code of conduct on relations on the lobby register, the point is, and there I agree with Frank Engel, is it respected? Are the current rules respected? If rules exist, but actually not enforcing them, not applying them doesn't hurt you, then they won't be respected. The point is that what we expected from the Commission is a set of rules that are legally binding. That is, okay, we have a register where all lobbyists have to register. They have to indicate clearly who is paying them and to what amount, so who they represent, and failure of providing the information must carry sanctions. And then their meetings, meetings of lawmakers should be limited to people who are registered. Okay? Now, will there be a ban to meet people who are not registered? No. What we are doing, and there again I agree with Frank, what we have done at the level of the Green Group, we have a website where we, the MEPs, are documenting our meetings with registered or not registered lobbyists. So people know at least who we meet. But then again, this is not enough because it's back to decency. In the course of my work on financial regulation, I have met countless executives from the financial sector. And when you meet the CEO of a bank, he's not registered as a lobbyist. Yet, what is he doing when he meets you? He's lobbying. Okay. But it is not because 100 bankers would tell me, do not do the bonus cap, that I would just obey. If they tell me something I do not believe is in the general interest, I don't do it. And even if 1,000 of them show up. So the real issue that we have, and again there I agree with Frank, it has more to do with the quality, the personal qualities of the people who are entrusted with a parcel of public authority. Legislators, ministers, commissioners. If they feel like, okay, I'm a no person and I will bend in the direction where I'm pushed most. Who are you? Why are you in politics? This is the key question. Okay,
I saw you were talking about Barroso, so let's continue talking about Barroso. I would like to introduce in this debate a question coming from one of our Euranet members from the Portuguese radio Renascença. So let's please listen to the question from Pedro Coweta.
Remembering what happened with former Commission members like Nelly Kroes, the decision to treat Durão Barroso as a lobbyist, not as an ex-president, because of his present job at Goldman Sachs, appears to be rather discriminatory. Do you agree? Do you think the LuxLeaks case influences now Juncker towards a more severe stance against Barroso?
In fact, there were two questions. So if it was discriminatory compared to the measures that the Commission has taken towards other similar cases, and if we are having a more severe attitude, as the journalist was saying, after cases like the LuxLeaks and this lack of trust. So you can start.
I don't think it's discriminatory because I don't know of any other case like that. There is no other former Commission president who would have taken the step of sort of joining one of the financial institutions that must be held accountable for a lot of mishap that happened to the world in recent years. And therefore, whatever measure that is now decided against him or in relation to him can, first of all, not be compared, and second, is probably justified. The main sentence of JeanClaude Juncker in this affair is the most relevant one, as far as I'm concerned, only that it took him far too long to pronounce it. When he said, if I had been him, I wouldn't have done it. That's the only thing that counts. And from then on, yes, he is now a lobbyist. Let him be treated like a lobbyist. And if JeanClaude Juncker has been affected by LuxLeaks and other things, I can tell you one thing because I've known the man for quite some time. After all, we belong to the small tribe of the Luxembourgers. We are not that many. And I've had many disagreements with Juncker. And I continue to have them. But I know for one certain fact that Juncker and money is a pair that doesn't work.
No, I agree.
Juncker has strictly nothing to do with this approach that would want to overly link and entwine political office and money before or afterwards. He detests that. And he's always detested it. And because he detests that and always has detested it, he takes the stance that he now takes on a number of things that he has objectively always considered unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's true that many former commissioners have taken jobs with major multinationals, and by the way, Kroes is one of them. Mm-hmm. But I can think of Bangerman, I can think of the German industry commissioner, social democrat, Verheugen. Yeah. Same thing. I mean, Karel de Gucht in Belgium, there's countless of them. And of course, I understand that if you do not want, and this is my case, to have politics as a career, you expect people to find other jobs before and after. I worked for a multinational for 22 years before being an MEP. And probably I will end up doing something else than being an MEP if and when I'm no longer re-elected. Well, that should be allowed, but there should be limits. And frankly, when you've been a commissioner, it's not that you are in sore material need. And well, for that level of executive power, I think that there should be much stronger limitations, and indeed, we should change the rules, of course, and strike then all commissioners alike. I'd like just to add something about our own institution, the Parliament. I find it abnormal that elected members of the Parliament in office can combine their job as a legislator with board memberships in banks, in multinationals, in whatever. If it's were charities, I would say, okay, no problem. But I know of a number of colleagues, including very prominent colleagues, who are trusting posts in board memberships at the same time as they legislate on financial regulation and all the rest of it. This should be forbidden. If you really want to rebuild trust, being an MEP is a well-paid job. It's a full-time job. You have no time to do something else. And that is also a rule that this Parliament should take for itself.
But in the case of Nelly Kroes, what should be done and how should she be punished?
If she lied, sue her, and let judges decide and sentence her.
At the end of the day, the majority that she had when she became commissioner was very, very slim. And it's very likely that if she had told the full story, she wouldn't have had the majority.
Well, so we had the case of Cañete, who also had a big story.
We had
controversial.
We had loads of stories, and none of them has been to the credit of political institutions, really. Because at the end of the day, if I don't manage to get myself dusted off before I jump into the swimming pool, I am a strange sort of character to hold relatively relevant office. Exactly.
Because in the case of Barroso, for example, now he's being considered as a lobbyist, but he still earns this early pension of, I think it's 7,000 euros a month. So I don't know if you think the punishment he has received is strong enough.
Look, under the present rules, that's probably what is possible. I do suppose that they've looked into this and determined how far they can go, how far they cannot go. We might not like it. Again, we might find it indecent or unuseful or whatever else. But if that's the rule, then that's the rule. Just like formally, after having waited his 18 months and after probably having consulted with the legal services of the Commission, they probably told him that it was now okay to do what he did on a purely legal ground, and they're just not in charge of ethics.
No, I mean, as legislators, we should be very much attached to respect of the rule of law. We may dislike the laws, but if the laws do not allow us to sanction him more than that, then probably we need to change the laws. But we cannot do more than what the law allows us, because then we are just sending a message to our citizens that laws can be bent at will, and this is not something I'm prepared to consider.
So arbitrariness is not.
We were going back at the beginning of the debate when I asked you if we need stronger rules. No, maybe
we need stronger rules, absolutely. But I say this is not enough, because even with stronger rules, you will not be able to have rules that force you to be 100% decent. It's about decency and indecency, and there. Well, if Barroso would have announced, okay, I'm going to work for Triodos Bank, an ethical bank, I think, many people would have been surprised, but it would have drawn a big applause from many people. Mm-hmm. Okay. But it was not, it's a bank. Goldman Sachs is a bank as well, not exactly the same animal. And therefore, the choice he made him an indecent person.
Okay, so let's go for the last question because we are running out of time. Is the question coming from our radio Euranet member of Luxembourg? Let's listen to the question coming from Rick Mertens.
Hello from Luxembourg. The current Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has, as far as we know, not worked for Goldman Sachs and does also not own any companies on the Bahamas. And yet he has been the Prime Minister of Luxembourg for almost 18 years, a country repeatedly criticized for giving tax advantages to large international companies. Frank Engel, can you understand EU citizens who doubt that he is the right man to improve the conduct of his commissioners? And what can be done to change this negative impression?
Well, first of all, he was in charge of a relatively small country with a relatively large financial sector before, and is now in charge of the European Commission as a committed European who I know him to be. That being so, I would ask people who tend to try and mix everything up to give him the benefit of the doubt as to having acted in a certain way when he was Prime Minister of Luxembourg and acting in a certain way when he was Commission President or while he is Commission President. That being said, as Prime Minister, and we've inquired into that, or as Minister of Finance, he did not directly give orders in this or that direction. So it's not as if that would, if anything that is now reproached to Luxembourg had been personally Juncker's doing.
But I think the question was, is he credible enough?
Look, credibility is something that, in my view, should result from the actions that you take. He's Commission President now. He was not Commission President 20 years ago. He now acts as Commission President, and he now acts as Commission President, suggesting the things, proposing the things, taking the measures that he now does. I find little incredible in that. I find little incredibility in that. If you want to give him credit for taking his present function seriously, but of course, if you want to deduce from the fact that he has been Prime Minister of Luxembourg, and if you want to build that upon a certain image that you yourself have of Luxembourg, and if you from there deduce that the man must therefore be, for the rest of his life, disqualified from ever taking a reasonable measure again, well, I guess you will just have to believe it.
Okay, unless you want to add something quickly.
No, I think that the guy behaves in a consistent way. He made Luxembourg a multinational friendly country. And when I look at his actions on free trade deals, on GMOs, on endocrine disruptors, etc., he keeps making Europe a multinational friendly territory. So the guy is, in a way, very consistent.
Okay, so thank you very much for your answers and for your time accepting Euronet's invitation. We have to leave it here because we're running out of time. The story of Neelie Kroes just started, so for sure we will continue talking about it. Thanks for watching and see you next week.